Welcome back, traders and investors, to Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep, brought to you by MarketFi. I'm your co-host, Joel Elconin, along with Brianna Valesky, and we have Sheldon McIntyre on the line. He is the founder of 360 Virtual Advisor. He has more than 14 years experience in the markets. He is also a MarketFi maven. Sheldon, how you doing today?
Doing well, Joel. Little sleepy, but doing well. Yourself?
Yeah, I forgot to add that you are a frequent and educated contributor to our chat, questioning our guests and throwing out some great issues to discuss in the market. We always want to thank you for that. Let's just go right to the market here. The S&P 500 have hit a new all-time high yesterday, new all-time high close. I can honestly say you've kind of been a permabull. Now that we've broken out to new all-time highs here, is it time to take some chips off the table?
I don't think it's the time to take some chips off the table unless you're trading on margin. Otherwise, I think you should hold steady. I think today, really, putting aside the S&P 500, I'm curious to see how the earnings of Microsoft, Google, Amazon, etc. If we can push the Nasdaq Composite into all-time highs today.
Okay, let's just dive in. You mentioned some really hot issues here. Amazon, not the great, pretty good numbers in line, little beat on revenue. Big move in the pre-market here. Do you have any analysis on Amazon?
Well, I generally don't hold stocks or buy stocks into earnings, but it is a stock that was on my watch list, for the last couple of weeks, actually. I do like the flat base it's been shaping, and I like the support it's been getting along the 10-week moving average. Well, it looks like it's going to break out into new highs here. I still might be interested on an intraday pullback to maybe initiate a half position. I wouldn't go long on it. In terms of, the earnings themselves, I'm not an analyst, so I can't really speak to the quality. Amazon has a general theme since I've been in the business that, the earnings are not really what's important. It's what industry Bezos is going to gobble up next and throw a bunch of people out of business. And it seems like that's how he's continuing to do that. So the market's looking favorably on it, and the chart doesn't look so bad.
So you said maybe on a little bit of a pullback, you would try and initiate a half a position for all. Are you talking for like a scalp
Yeah, probably
Okay.
like for 2 to 3 days
Oh, okay.
max.
Wow.
I have a rule generally, unless the pattern is picture perfect, I usually don't buy a gap, whether it's off earnings or otherwise. And this is when you're looking at a stock of this size, when you have that type of pattern and how constructive it is, I will be interested in trying to get into it today.
Okay. Let's before I go to the other stocks that had earnings, we got an interesting question coming out of the chat here from Jack Koo, and it looks like he exited here and freed up some dollars from some sales earlier this week. Took some looking to redeploy some of those assets. He's looking around for some new movers or new sectors. Do you have any suggestions where something while the market's up at all-time highs, maybe something that still looks relatively cheap to you?
Well, one of the interesting things about the market over the last few weeks, at least something that has been predominating my screen, is that it hasn't been necessarily the top ranked groups that have been holding up the market and pushing it higher. It has been the mean reversion trades, whether it's in some mining stocks, the oil sector in general, steel. And that's something I mentioned coming into April, that this quarter could be dominated by that theme. I do like on a mean reversion trade, I do like the oil services sector. I think that there's still quite a bit of upside left in that. In terms of, let's say, more leading groups, I do like a stock that broke out yesterday. I do like a lot is HAR, Harman.
Okay, we'll take a
I
look.
also
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I'm breaking out to new all-time highs here. Had a nice bump up. That was probably from earnings. Then you had the long consolidation period. Now breaking out. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, that's one that I actually had a position in earlier, and I added a little bit more to it yesterday. I find it to be pretty constructive price action. Also, the relative strength line was already breaking into new highs before price, which I view as very constructive. I also like ULTA, which is trying to break out of a tight range.
Okay. I just wanted to ask you. Just used a term there, and J.C. Peretz use it. Some of our other technical analysts use it, and fundamental traders. And you talk about a mean reversion. Now, everyone, it's pretty much it's self-explanatory. But like, let's just look at crude oil here. I know you follow, the major commodities and stuff. Mean reversion trade here. I mean, I think I look at that as like retracements or whatnot. What would be in the crude oil futures? To you would be, a completion of a mean reversion.
Sure, it's actually I posted a monthly chart actually yesterday of crude oil of light crude oil, and I had posted I think it was about a month and a half ago, or I forget the exact date, that I thought that the oil was nearing a low based upon the historical precedent of previous major declines, as well as the key support of 41.15, and I thought that a rebound would take it back to about the 200-month moving average, and we have come up to about I think $3 or $4 of that price level. So when I talk about a mean reversion trade, I'm looking at it on 2 time frames. I'm not looking at it a daily, and I'm not looking intraday. I'm looking at it weekly, and I'm looking at it monthly. And someone that I followed a little bit, his work has been pretty much secret, is Michael Belkin. Maybe you've heard of
Okay.
him.
Yeah.
He's huh?
No, I have heard of him. Explain his theories.
Yeah, he really talked about the principal trend deviation and how, generally in bull markets, you'll have the indexes, for example, rise to a point where they're at a certain deviation from the 200 week, and you'll see a correction or even a cyclical bear market down into the 200 week and higher. Well, the reverse happens also in a bear market where you have certain indexes or commodities. Commodities actually work better where you fall way below the 200 week and get extremely oversold. And in some cases, you even fall to the 200 month or lower. And usually the corrective bounces will find themselves stalling or back at the 200 month or at the 200 week. And in the case of oil, that is something that, we're coming up to now.
Okay. Any stocks overvalued to you here? Things that have maybe hit your targets, taken some profits on, and time to move on and redeploy your assets.
Overvalued, I don't really use
That term?
valuations per se. I've been tiptoeing in this market now for about a month and a half. One of the things that's been predominating it is the lack of price traction over certain round numbers on the major benchmark indexes. And also the leadership of the market has become much more diffuse than it was before between different areas. So I've been taking some profits in semiconductors, which have been struggling. I've taken some profits in biotech. Those are really the 2 areas that I've looked to take profits in recent weeks.
What about Biogen today? BIIB, it had the big drop and then just consolidated while, some of the other biotechs came back. Biogen couldn't even manage a bounce here. Um, we are now trading at the lows of the pre-market session here. What do you think about Biogen?
Yeah, I mean, it's done, it did exceptionally well until recently. One of the things I put out a while ago also that I felt that the biotechs, once again, what we saw early last year, is that the biotechs were having a short-term blow off top, and sure enough, we pulled back, and Biogen was one of those stocks that really led that drop. One of the things about Biogen now is you have that sharp drop, so that it negatively influences now the overall chart pattern. And while it was holding the 10-week here, it was clear to me that there was, sufficient technical damage that perhaps hinted towards negative earnings. There was something, a lot of times prices always, are looking ahead. And there was something in the price action that suggested that earnings were not going to be good. And it's not a surprise for me at all. But, it's interesting because I looked at Biogen last night, and it's a classic stock. I'm sure you remember the 90s and the great run it had. and it's one of those stocks that you want to put in your model book of big runs.
Okay, all right. And just moving on here, Mr. Softy had some good earnings here. Bad earnings last time. They took it down to 40. Good earnings this time. Back up the gapping up here near that area where it was before. Your thoughts on Microsoft?
Yeah, it's not a stock that I've traded really since I got in the business in the late '90s. It hasn't printed a new all-time high since then, and it's one of those stocks that Richard Love in his book talks about how you have market leaders that have their big run, like we saw Microsoft, particularly in the '90s and even in the late '80s. Have their big run, and then really they never revisit those all-time highs. And Microsoft really hasn't been a market leader since late '99, early 2000, and it's not a growth stock anymore. So it's not a stock that I would be putting capital into as a professional trader. If you're a large money manager, maybe you want to be in the stock, but otherwise, it's not something that I would recommend touching.
Not even like the dividend, the steady growth. Look at a conservative place to put your money. You're just all about growth stocks.
Largely, yes. I'm looking for the best merchandise in the market, and that's defined by what stocks have the best relative strength, and as well as the best earnings, sales, etc. growth. And
Okay.
usually, those are stocks that are in the earlier stage of development.
Do you have a few minutes here to give us some look at some stocks here from the chat?
Sure.
How about Q?
Like try
How about Q?
Q.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, this is a typical Rob Hood chart here. It just kind of had a nice run up, consolidation, trying to bump up and break out here. It's Quintilis Transportations Holding Incorporated.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the stock. It's popped up on my screens a few times. I'm looking at the chart here. It doesn't have the type of fundamental background that I would look at in terms of earning deceleration, return on equity, etc. And that big weekly negative reversal we saw, I guess, the beginning of this month is, unless we get a pat above there, uh, I really wouldn't touch the stock. I
Okay.
think you're probably going to find some notable overhead at that level. And in
Okay.
fact, I would probably like to see a weekly close above that level before I would entertain entering it.
Okay. All right. Good opinion on that one. How about CST? Another one I'm not too familiar with.
Yeah, CST. That doesn't ring a
Let's
mass.
see what it is. CST brands.
Yeah, okay. Well, we have
Wow.
a big flat base set, it looks like here setting up. Yeah, the super slash mini markets have been a stronger area for the last few weeks. I guess you could take that as a defensive sign about the market. Once again, supermarket, mini markets, they really don't have revenue growth. They're usually more defensive play. I do like how the pattern's setting up here on a flat base. If it breaks out a new highs, I would maybe take half position. If you wanted to get in early, if it closes today above last week's high, you have a bullish engulfing week. So maybe you initiate a little bit today into the close and then see if it can break out and add there.
What about Google? Does that stock get a free pass or what on Wall Street?
Yeah, it's a fair question. Really hasn't done anything since the end of 2013. I see it's going to be gapping higher today. I guess they mentioned the dollar impact. I really, I'm not a big Google fan. I
Oh,
know
really?
that people
Okay.
see it as a great company. I think that, it's more of a private equity fund. I guess that's the more attractive thing in companies that it invests in is probably the more attractive area of the business. It's right now it looks like a flat base, but if you look at the volume footprint on a weekly chart, I just don't see it being very constructive at all there. I would, in fact, if it took out I guess it would be the lows of earlier this year and reversed off that, then that might be a spot where you want to initiate a position. You'd have a good risk reward scenario there. But otherwise, I wouldn't touch the stock here.
Okay. Final advice for traders here at all-time highs. Market looks good today. Just any final tips?
Yeah, I mean, if you're making money, raise your trailing stops. If you've entered new positions, tighten your stop losses on those, and continue to track the leading areas of the market. And if you're going to play the mean reversion trade, be conservative and don't expect too much. A lot of times people get in to a mean reversion trade and they see these big, massive declines and think, okay, well, we're going to look at a 50% retracement. That's a lot of money. Don't get caught up in that. Stay focused on the weekly and the monthly moving averages for resistance. And other than that, don't get impatient and don't chase the market.
Sheldon McIntyre, founder of 360 Virtual Advisor. He's been in the market, has more than 14 years of experience. If you like his input, you can check out his product on MarketFi. Sheldon, once again, I'm going to thank you for participating in our chat on a daily basis. I know you have a little bit different of a time schedule, but we appreciate you making the effort, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Sure, Joel. I would just like to add that, Brianna asked about what we'd like to hear about. I wouldn't mind having a segment on cybersecurity.
Oh my
All
gosh.
right, there
That
we go.
that
Thank you, Sheldon.
that is what Brianna brought up in the meeting. And that
Did
is
she? Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it's been a growth area of the market. I've made some decent money in some stocks there, and I think it would be a very timely uh, day.
And you know what?
Awesome.
You mentioned it to other people. We won't reveal it yet. But what about a trader? Someone that's in there. Like
Hmm.
Sheldon, and get the technical analysis. So great idea, Sheldon. Keep them coming. Appreciate you coming on as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks,
Take care,
Sheldon.
guys.